This is Rogers TV.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Money Matters with Shannon Jackson, the personal finance show focused on moving you forward financially. On today's show, as post-secondary students settle into college and university life, a new survey from TD Bank reveals that they and their parents are facing many challenges when it comes to funding post-secondary education. And joining me to discuss the findings of the survey in detail and share advice on how both students and parents can best manage finances during this time is Meranda Hamilton, Senior Manager of Youth and Students at TD Bank. Meranda, welcome to Money Matters. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Shannon. Thanks for having me.
Before we get into our chat, can you share a little bit with our viewers about what your role is at TD?
Yeah, of course. So as you said, I'm the Senior Manager of Youth and Student Banking, and my team is really focused on helping parents, students, and youth to navigate through those early financial milestones, like starting a post-secondary education.
So you're really focused on those young people and their parents, of course, that come in and need that advice on preparing for getting ready for university and college.
Absolutely. Even how to have the conversations earlier than that when your kids are young.
Well, you're definitely going to be an expert on what we're talking about today because, of course, we're talking about that financial strain that many post-secondary students and parents are facing. And so the TD survey shows that not only are many post-secondary students struggling financially and relying on their parents to get by, they're facing financial challenges when it comes to funding their education as well. And so the survey found that 65% define themselves, 65% of the students, I should say, define themselves as financially unstable, and 45% are currently unable to adequately cover basic needs such as food and housing. And so, Meranda, these are pretty high numbers. Are you surprised that students are feeling this instability?
I would describe myself as concerned, but not surprised. We know the economic climate in Canada is difficult right now. We know that interest rates have gone up. We know housing costs have gone up. Food is more expensive. And then, of course, we know that that's going to disproportionately impact students. A lot of students are living on a fixed income. A lot of students are working part-time jobs or minimum wage and are now having to stretch those dollars farther. The other thing I would say is we did a survey last year on a similar topic, and we surveyed former students, and they said that they felt 73% of them felt that current students are more financially challenged than they were when they were in school. So I think this sentiment has started a few years back.
So it seems to be trending upwards in that respect, where year after year that students are feeling this more and more of a struggle financially as they head into their post-secondary years.
That's certainly what the surveys have been telling us, yeah.
Yeah. And so I was reading the findings of the poll, and there was one statistic that was a good thing, and that was that 64% of students say that they do have some kind of a budget and they're tracking their monthly expenses. Now, that said, 41% say they're able to follow it on a regular basis, and 2/3 say that they wish that they knew more about budgeting and financial planning strategies. Now, parents are also apprehensive, of course, about their child's budgeting abilities. A vast majority of parents have some concerns, the main concerns being that they're worried their kids need to develop better spending habits, better financial literacy, less reliance on their parents for financial support, and they're also concerned about using financial apps and they're tracking their budget. So there's certainly some issues here that parents are concerned about. Meranda, would you agree that these financial literacy skills have been a consistent concern for sort of a number of years for both students and parents?
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack in those stats. So, okay, let me start first with students. I would say anytime someone's going to school, it's usually the first time that they're budgeting on their own. And so I would expect that someone would feel nervous about that or question the best way to go about it. We know budgeting can be hard anytime, but imagining it's your first time and then you're in school, so you're on that fixed income, it's inconsistent, you have unexpected expenses, and there's also a lot of social pressures in school and a lot of fun in school. And so I know that students are going to need help budgeting through that experience. And parents have probably learned through their experience budgeting through school. I know, everyone makes mistakes with their budgets. When I was young, I remember I once thought that if you paid the minimum payment on your credit card, you didn't get charged interest, for example. And so, we've learned from our mistakes. We've gone through those university experiences, and we want to send our kids into the world more prepared than we were. But what I would say about all of those statistics as a whole is if we're hearing that both students and parents are anxious, it's signaling a really good opportunity for them to talk about these finances together.
I completely agree with you. And so focusing on that budgeting side of things, do you have any advice for students, but also parents who are helping to guide their children with getting that budget together for the post-secondary years?
Yeah, I'll start with my advice for both. And that is, if you haven't done your budgeting for the year already, do it now. It just gets harder later in the year. Holidays are coming, exams are coming. It is going to get more stressful. And it's really important to pre-plan for the big things like housing, tuition, and textbooks. Banks and universities both usually have budgeting tools online that can help start the budget. I really like them because if you're new to school, they help you anticipate expenses and costs that typical students will encounter. But if you're not sure where to start and you're not thinking about going that detailed into your budget, you could even just start with a really quick and simple rule like the 50-30-20 rule. So it's an old one where you should plan to have 50% of your budget go towards needs, 30% wants, and 20% savings. And then speaking on savings, my advice for students would be to definitely create an emergency fund or a rainy day fund. Expenses that might not feel unexpected to us might feel unexpected to a student. And I think about things like when I was young and I had my first car, I always remembered to budget for gas. I never remembered to budget for tires. And so that one just kind of always hit me. And so having money on the side ready for those things can really help. And then hugely important is to make sure you revisit your budget monthly. So if you're doing it in an Excel spreadsheet, bring up that spreadsheet every month and check in on it, or use tools online. TD has My Spend, which actually categorizes all your transactions into needs and wants for you, and can tell you how you're trending for the month. So those check-in tools can really help keep you on track.
I agree with that regular sort of monitoring and determining those needs and wants, absolutely critical, especially as a young person. I completely agree with that. I mean, the word budget comes with this, I don't know, just everyone who, if you hear the word budget, they think, well, it's a lot of work to put one together and it restricts you from having any fun and that kind of thing. And really a budget is just meant to give you just a little bit of guidance and to give you clarity, I think, as well. Making sure you're well aware of what kind of income do you have, or if it's not necessarily income, what money do you have from scholarships or things like that from schools, and where is that money going to be best utilized in order to move forward. So a budget, I think, is just one of those critical tools that it can advance not only your education, but your skills as well as you move forward. So I appreciate what you said there. And so there was another key finding with the TD survey as well that stood out, that said that 37% of students regularly compare their financial situation to others. And you mentioned this before, that we're constantly looking at other people. And 28% of students are feeling inadequate around those who appear to be financially better off. And of course, we know that there's a pressure around us to fit in. We know that we're all glued to our phones, of course, and there's maybe that fear of missing out, or the you only live once kind of attitude for kids. Can you talk a little bit about these statistics and the fact that there is this pressure that kids are feeling?
Yeah, I would urge students to try not to compare, because like we just talked about, this survey just found that majority of students are actually feeling financially unstable. And so I think the key word that you used is it appears real on social media. And that is the truth. We don't know what's real on social media. We don't know what happens behind the scenes to afford the lifestyle people are posting on social media, whether or not they're taking on debt. And so if you're looking at social media and you're comparing and you're feeling like, I don't know how to keep up with these people, you're probably not alone based on the survey. And if I had to give any advice, and if I had to say where you should compare, is define your own values in life, create goals that are going to ladder up to what you value. Do you like being outside and you want to go camping? Create goals to get outside, build your financial plan, and then compare to that. Check that budget monthly, compare to the goals that you're setting for yourself.
Yeah, I agree with that. Having those standards for yourself first, I think, is really important. And then you're competing with yourself as opposed to the other students maybe that are around you. So I agree with that. Now, in addition to that social media influence, of course, we're finding that there's a lot of people online that are giving financial advice. And your survey shows that 20% of students are primarily getting their financial advice from social media platforms like TikTok and Instagram and YouTube. This is a little bit concerning. Do you have any thoughts about where students should be turning to get their advice?
So many thoughts. I'm going to start with what I like about social media, because I do want to talk about that. It's that it's opening the conversation. And so if all of these students are feeling financially unstable and they're going to social media and they're having conversations, that's obviously going to help to destigmatize some of the financial challenges students are facing. And the other thing is there's like really great tips on there. I'm going to be honest. There was a trend called loud budgeting this year where everybody declared their budget goals and how they were going to reach them. And I stole a tip from somebody on social media who said they weren't going to purchase new dresses for events they were invited to that year. And so we can learn from each other on social media for sure. What I don't like about it is obviously financial advice on there is not vetted. It's meant to appeal to a broad audience. People giving advice might not have the accreditation to do so. And it not being personalized means that it might not be applicable to everybody else. If you think of a student who might be planning a year off to travel versus working, like they need to do different things with their budget.
I like that you said that there are some benefits, because I agree with you. I get tidbits myself. They're the soundbite kind of tidbits that you can find, which are often, really great ideas for a savings plan or a little challenge that you can give to yourself, some kind of a way to reduce expenses. And I agree with you. It's finding for those maybe longer term goals, finding those really the people that have the accreditation to be able to give that advice. So I think that's really important for everyone to understand. So we've been focusing mostly now on the challenges that students have been facing and that have been revealed in the TD survey. But the survey also reveals some challenges that parents are facing. And we're going to focus on those after the break when Money Matters returns.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
I walk for my partner who is on dialysis.
I walk in memory of my dad.
I walk for all those waiting for a kidney transplant.
I walk because I live with kidney disease. When you participate in the kidney walk or support someone who does, you're taking steps and providing hope to thousands of Canadians living with kidney disease. Behind every step, there's someone we walk for.
Who will you be walking for?
Who will you be walking for?
Who will you be walking for?
Register or donate at kidneywalk.ca.
Public transit, garbage pickup, parks and recreation programs, snow removal on your street. How can you stay informed about these and other important local services? Tune to City Council coverage on Rogers TV. See your community leaders at work on Rogers TV City Council coverage.
Welcome back to Money Matters with Shannon Jackson. My guest today is Meranda Hamilton, Senior Manager at TD Bank for Youth and Students. And we're discussing TD's recent survey that shows the challenges students and parents are facing when it comes to funding post-secondary education. And it's a timely topic because we are, after all, just a few weeks into the new semester of university and college. In the first half of the show, we focused on the challenges that students are facing, and I want to switch that now to see what the survey says when it comes to the challenges that parents are experiencing. And the survey was showing that 94% of parents with a child in post-secondary studies say they do provide some level of financial support. So that's really every parent who has a student in university. They are helping them out. And 58% of those parents say that they provide support of a significant amount. And the one that really stood out to us was that of those who provide the level of support, nearly 3/4 of them say it is impacting their ability to meet their own basic financial needs and afford other activities as well. So, Meranda, when you hear these statistics, is there a concern at all when you hear what parents are willing to do?
I mean, there is a concern, but again, not a surprise because parents are also facing a difficult economic climate right now. And when I hear the survey results, what I think is a lot of parents who may have been preparing all along to send their kids to school and have money set aside to send their kids to school may not have been able to anticipate the financial support that is now needed because student life is so much less affordable. And so I'm sure a lot of parents are now revisiting their own plans to assess, do they still make sense? Did the goals that I had for my child in post-secondary education still make sense? Do I want them to live at home longer? Do I need to help more with expenses? There's probably a lot of things that they're relooking at with the climate that we're in.
And it could shift as well. I mean, like you say, if they did that early planning and it's a bit unexpected that more is needed, then it means maybe shifting the goals of the parents, especially if they're heading into retirement years where something maybe needs to be adjusted in that way. Would you agree?
What I would say is if somebody is looking at adjusting their retirement goals, I would come and talk to an advisor to really assess that because there's always options to explore there. That is one lever a parent could look at to help their student with their post-secondary education. But before going into that, look at how are you trending towards your retirement? Is it going to happen when you expect it to? Could you adjust your contributions or put more money aside later in life to catch back up after school? There's a lot of options to explore around retirement and assess how you can adjust that plan to still keep on track while helping your kids.
Absolutely. I love that you went into that. So I appreciate that that input. And so you just mentioned that there's really no surprise to hearing what parents are sort of going through. There was another recent survey that was conducted by a national education savings and planning company, and it showed that 66% of parents are willing to postpone their retirement to help their child pay for their education. 57% say they would actually be willing to go into debt to help with those education costs. And 55% say they were willing to trim their day-to-day necessities. And then 78% believe that it is actually their duty as a parent to pay for their child's education. And so you mentioned before, Meranda, that's not surprising. I mean, obviously parents want to do as much as they possibly can for their kids. Should parents be putting their own financial well-being, though, at risk in order to do that?
What I can say is we don't ever want a parent to feel like they don't have a financial plan, and we don't want a parent to feel like their financial well-being is at risk. Banks have so many options to explore to help through this time in life. We talked about adjusting retirement goals and retirement plans to accommodate these maybe unexpected expenses. But another option, you talked about going into debt. It's like you could look at a student line of credit, and those usually have lower interest rates, lower payments. There's ways to approach this planning that could help them feel more stable in their own finances as well.
Are there other ways that parents can reduce those education costs?
Yeah, I would say borrowing from low rate products is an important one. ensuring that your investment portfolio is aligned to your child's education horizon is important. There's obviously scholarships and different lifestyle choices, like kids staying at home longer, maybe exploring shared housing. There's so many options that I still would reiterate the advice of talk to an advisor about them, just to make sure you're seeing which levers are going to make most sense for you and your family.
It sounded like the school websites as well. Some of them have some of those resources and tools to tap into to maybe get those different ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. School websites have a lot of budgeting resources, and then obviously they're going to talk to you about different housing options available to students, and they're going to talk about different scholarships and tuition payment options too. I would say it's good to check the university websites and the bank websites before you start that planning.
And of course, I think we all agree that starting that planning early is certainly a key thing that we should be doing. I myself am already focused on it. My daughter is 6, and I'm already fixated on how her post-secondary future is going to look. Because, as we know, and you mentioned earlier, that the costs of these education programs are increasing. The most recent statistics that we found was starting this semester, so starting for fall of 2024, the average cost of a 4-year post-secondary program in Canada will rise to just over $75,000. Now, of course, in Ontario, it is more expensive. The average in Ontario is $86,000 over that 4-year period. That's over $20,000 per year with residence costs and tuition, etc. And so when you hear that figure, of course, it makes sense that people should be having a discussion with their kids as they're going into post-secondary education, have that money talk. Meranda, do you have any advice for parents on how to start that discussion with their kids?
Absolutely. Know that students want to learn, and our survey even told us that students, they even want to learn the complex things. 46% of students said they wanted to learn about investments and RSPs. Gen Z are very savvy when it comes to finances. So if you're comfortable with it, maybe share with them what your financial plans are, or what decisions you made throughout your life to prepare them for their post-secondary education financially, what investment choices you may have made to get to this place in your life. If you're not comfortable opening up your own budget, you could start by doing their budget together. And even that can help open up some conversations around important things like maintaining a credit score, savings, and budgeting.
And how involved do you think a parent should be with their child's finances as they're going through this post-secondary education?
I think only a parent can know that, know how close they want to stage their child. But what I would say is if you're sharing finances through school, there's probably some topics that are good to talk about up front. So things like whether or not you want to have a joint account. Some parents like to give access to their kids to a portion of their credit card for emergencies. If you're giving them money and transferring it, when will that be? Even touching on subjects like, what if you don't stick to the budget and you run out of money? What's going to happen? These are really important things that can cause stress down the line. And so good to talk about now.
And what about having sort of a regular, we call it sort of a check-in, but I mean, as employers, of course, we have check-ins with our staff on a regular basis to talk about goals and things like that. Do you think that's a useful thing to do with our kids while they're going through school?
Absolutely. And even checking in monthly. And if you're not sure how to do it, just ask a question. How's your budget going?
Yeah, I agree. And just working through those, again, those needs and wants, because obviously you're in university, you want to have a good time, but at the same time, you know, you're there primarily for your education. And so having those really important discussions, I think, is really important. But would you say, in my opinion, I think it's also worthwhile for maybe the child to have a bit of skin in the game. So what I mean by that is, were they working a part-time job, or was it a full-time job over the summer? Are they contributing those funds to their own education? Do you think that's a worthwhile exercise for these students to do?
So our survey did tell us that 59% of students already do have jobs and are contributing to their post-secondary education. So the majority of students are. Again, I think it's really going to depend on the financial situation that parents and students are in, and even what they're pursuing in school. We know that some programs might be more difficult to complete while doing a job. So it's just a good thing to talk about up front and to plan out up front and to incorporate into that budget conversation together.
I remember back when I was in school, and if I date myself, this is going to be over 20 years ago. And I remember thinking that my summer job that I had before I started school would be enough to earn me enough to pay for my tuition, at least for my first semester. And it was a bit of an eye-opener that as I started to earn that money and have found out how much it wasn't quite enough to cover that cost. So I think it's good for as you say, your survey is showing that the majority of students are already working and contributing to that education, which I think is really, really good, because it was an eye-opener for me, and I think it can be a good education for students today, as well as we build those skills and those financial literacy things that we need to know as we move forward. Now, sort of segueing into that, I noticed on the TD website there is lots of resources for parents who want to proactively educate their kids on finances, and the advice ranges by age. Can you share a little bit about those tools that are available?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start by saying we really start to see engagement in financial literacy increase around age 10. And you mentioned having a 6-year-old. I have a 10-year-old nephew. You notice at those ages, kids start getting birthday money and they're wondering what to do with it. Maybe they don't want to put it in a piggy bank. They want to put it in a bank account. They're trying to keep up with their peers on the schoolyard. And so we do have an in-branch experience for young kids who want to come and open their first bank account. We'll give tours of the branch. We will give away a piggy bank. We'll teach them about financial literacy. You can start quite young with kids, and that's something that TD likes to do. We talked about a lot of the resources that were online as well. There's budgeting tools. TD MySpend is my favorite one to recommend to students because it does track your expenses for you. You don't have to really input anything into it. It'll just watch what you're spending. Depending on what age your child is at, there's tons of different opportunities available.
And so, do you have any final thoughts for our viewers? We've only got a minute left, but any final thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about kids. I would say it is never too early to talk about financial literacy with your kids. If you don't know where to start, we talked about inviting them into some of your financial information. Doesn't always mean sharing your mortgage statement with them. It could even just mean when you get the bill from the mailbox, teaching your kids what a bill is, or teaching them about keeping your debit card safe. And it's also, we're always here for you. Like it's never the wrong time to come in and recheck your own financial plan and make sure that you're still on track for your goals while supporting your children to achieve theirs.
Well, Meranda, I really want to thank you for being here today. And we're going to post all of the relevant social media and websites here for our viewers to be able to connect. But I really want to thank you for your advice. And I want to thank our viewers as well for watching. Until next time, I'm Shannon Jackson.
Connect with us by visiting our website or email us at comments@rogerstv.com.